This is the 10th Brisbane update on the Brisbane channel for 2025, keeping you in the loop with everything happening across the 5 Greater Brisbane LGAs. Except for Logan this week, where it seems things have been a bit quiet since Alfred. But I've still got 19 updates for you to stay in the loop, so get your skates on Brisbane and let's go. First up, with the official announcement outlining the results of the 100-day review into Olympic and Paralympic Games infrastructure due this coming Tuesday morning, there's a lot of rumours flying around about what will or won't be announced. While there is speculation about Brisbane Arena, originally planned to be built above Roma Street Station, then moved to a part of Roma Street Parklands in the last Games review, and reportedly moved to near the Woolloongabba Cross River Rail Station in the review due on Tuesday, as well as potentially being abandoned altogether by the state government, the Brisbane channel will wait for the official review announcement and state government response on Tuesday to look into the matter in any detail. Something that can be reported as facts rather than rumours is that major stadia across southeast Queensland have been found to be riddled with issues in need of repair. This includes Cusack, which was the former state government's choice of Olympic Stadium, which has termites in its food outlet, as well as almost 10,000 rusted or missing bolts and screws across its stands, not including 6,000 corroded screws in 1,160 weathered seats. The Sleeman Sports Centre in Chandler has 220 issues recorded. Also, sections of the Gabba and Suncorp Stadium will reach the end of their useful life in either 2028 or 2029, well before the 2032 Games. This is based on QBuild maintenance assessment reports obtained under right to information laws by the Brisbane Times. Full disclosure, I have not cited the documents, so there may be inaccuracies in the Brisbane Times' reporting. Former Brisbane Lord Mayor and head of the previous Games review, Graham Quirk, has expressed concern that one of the key potential benefits of hosting the Games that motivated South East Queensland councils to agree to apply to host in the first place may not end up being achieved. Originally, improvements to transport infrastructure was one of the main legacies councils hoped for from the Games. But Quirk says that the focus has instead turned to stadia and Olympics-specific infrastructure rather than infrastructure that will continue to serve Brisbane into the future and help address the increased demand that a growing population places on transport networks. Quirk pointed out that the 3 essential outcomes of the Games when Brisbane put in its bid were improved transport infrastructure, greater awareness of the city as a tourism and investment destination, and inspiration for young Queenslanders to be healthy and sporty. He says we may have missed the boat a little in terms of public transport infrastructure. It will be interesting to see on Tuesday if public transport and transport infrastructure in general is addressed in the government's response to the review. One thing that we can say is that Brisbane has had the longest period of time to prepare for the Games of any host city. 11 years from Brisbane being awarded the Games in July of 2021 and the events themselves in 2032. Yet now we find ourselves just over 7 years out and still without even having an official decision on the Games venues. Not only that, but the inability to come to a concrete plan in a timely manner has led to the IOC's rules being bent to accommodate. Rule 45 of the Olympic Charter states that the sporting program should be decided 7 years before the opening of the event. But this week it was announced that Brisbane would be given a 1-year extension to the deadline to lock in the program. Some media outlets have reported this as breaking the rules, but that's not accurate as the Charter states that the IOC Executive Board can decide otherwise, so to reduce the period is still within the rules laid out. But that's enough of the Olympics for now, as I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more in the next couple of weeks. Let's move on to the situation for people experiencing homelessness camping in Brisbane parks. Last week, we heard of Brisbane City Council's decision to evict homeless campers from parks across the city. The plan was to serve 24-hour move-on notices to people camping in parks who refused crisis accommodation. A week on, and not a single fine or move-on order had been issued by Friday this week, although council said they had verbally told 4 people to leave. Queensland law restricts the right to make move-on orders to police, and the Queensland Police Service has said it would not enforce the council's ban. Karen Walsh, the chief executive of Micah Projects, which works with people experiencing homelessness, says that there's simply not enough temporary accommodation available that could be offered, which is a side effect of the housing crisis. But let's move to something more positive, and smart ticketing will finally be available across the entire public transport network of southeast Queensland from Monday, when all Brisbane buses will be fully equipped to allow you to pay with your debit card, credit card, smartwatch or phone without needing a go card. Commuters are being encouraged to remove cards from their purse or wallet when tapping on and off to avoid what TransLink calls a card clash. This is where, if there are multiple cards all close to the reader, it will attempt to read all of them. This could result in multiple cards being charged, or a card being charged the default fee of $2.50, or it being declined. So be careful if you're going to use smart ticketing, or even if you try to use your Go card that's in the same wallet as your other cards. And while we're talking public transport, TransLink may be looking into new ways to combat fare evasion. An internal audit found that 90% of time was spent combating fare evasion on bus and ferry routes, not because people are more likely to evade fares on those modes than on trains, but because there is more data available to identify problem areas to focus on. This is because staff such as drivers have a button they can press when someone doesn't tap on, which can feed into a pool of data for analysis. But with trains, passengers tap on and off at the station entry rather than on the train itself. The audit found that up to $37 million was lost each year to fare evasion. But that was before the 50-cent fares were introduced. So while TransLink may consider adopting new solutions, including door counting technology and AI systems, the amount invested in reducing fare evasion will likely be much lower due to a massive decrease in the cost of each person not paying their way. Unfortunately, there's no 50-cent fares for international travel, but I can recommend one way you can save if you're heading overseas. Did you know that the winner of Best International Travel Insurance for Value in Finder's 2024 Travel Insurance Awards is a local Brisbane company? Wise and Silent Travel Insurance won the 2024 Value Award because it costs less on average but covers you for more. They're also the official travel insurance provider for Australian passengers on Scoot Airlines and the sponsor of this video. Backed by a global insurance provider and a 24/7 medical assistance team, the rave reviews on Trustpilot confirm that you can travel with total peace of mind if you choose Wise and Silent for your next overseas trip. Click this QR code or the link in the video description to get an exclusive 10% discount on your premium. Back to Brisbane, and health authorities are warning people to be alert to mosquitoes as the Japanese encephalitis virus has been detected for the first time in Brisbane. This comes after the first locally acquired case in Queensland since 2022 was recorded in January. The virus is spread to humans by mosquitoes that become infected when they bite infected pigs or wading birds. You can reduce the chance of being bitten by applying insect repellents that contain DEET, picaridin or oil of lemon eucalyptus to exposed skin, wearing loose light-coloured clothing to cover up arms, legs and feet, using mosquito coils or insecticide vapor units if outside or in a well-ventilated area, and using mosquito nets or screens when camping. Most people who are infected with Japanese encephalitis only experience mild symptoms or none at all, but some may experience more severe symptoms, including fever, headache, abdominal pain or vomiting, typically within 5 to 15 days of being bitten. It can lead to severe neurological illness or even death in some people. 7 people have died of Japanese encephalitis in Australia since 2021. Mosquitoes can also spread Ross River and dengue viruses. We can reduce the probability of getting bitten by mosquitoes by bringing more tourists to Brisbane. And this week, the Brisbane Economic Development Agency launched their new Brisbane Favours the Bold tourism campaign, with ads like this.
Deep breath. And out.
It's estimated that ex-tropical cyclone Alfred wiped about $68 million from the local tourism industry, and past campaigns similar to this one have helped to inject $85 million into Brisbane's economy. And it's expected the campaign will help draw more people not only to Brisbane City, but to the surrounding areas in southeast Queensland. The campaign debuted on Tuesday across Australia and New Zealand. At the press conference scheduled to announce the campaign launch, Brisbane's Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner was also asked about the footpaths along the Story Bridge, which have been closed since the recent severe weather. Many people have been wondering when the paths would reopen, so here's what Schrinner had to say.
So we had to close the footpaths during the cyclone, and that was about we didn't want people walking across that very high and exposed position during those windy days, and also the rain that came after. So that was about people being safe during the weather event. But what we've done is we've used the opportunity now, because we have money from the federal government to progress our business case and restoration plan. So just prior to Cyclone Alfred, we received $2.25 million from the federal government to get on with our business case and restoration plan for the Story Bridge. And as part of that work, we need to do technical assessments on various parts of the bridge. The footpath is the first place that we're doing testing and assessments on. We need the footpath to be closed while we do those assessments, and so we're just taking the opportunity now to keep it closed for a little bit longer so that we can do the testing and then we can get on with the process beyond that. And so apologise for the inconvenience. We have to do this testing. We can't do the testing while people are using the footpath, but as soon as we've done that testing, we'll be letting you know when we can get back to normal again.
A reporter asked why both sides remained closed at the same time and why at least one side could not be reopened, and the answer was less clear.
Why just don't close one footpath and have the other one tested and swap over?
We're doing testing on both sides.
Let's stay in Brisbane City for the first few LGA-specific updates. Firstly, it's been announced that a review of Brisbane's response to ex-tropical cyclone Alfred will be conducted by former Governor and Supreme Court Chief Justice Paul de Jersey. De Jersey also completed the 2022 Brisbane Flood Review, which resulted in 37 recommendations, all of which have been actioned. Those recommendations included the voluntary home purchase scheme, where properties impacted by flooding and assessed as being likely to flood again were purchased by the government. This was funded by state and federal levels of government. Of the 293 properties purchased, early indications show that 189 would have been impacted by the recent severe weather. The results of this year's review will be made public, and the Brisbane channel will be sure to share the findings and recommendations, so make sure you're subscribing. Also, if you appreciate these updates, you can say thanks by buying me a coffee. Or you can become a channel member to get additional perks and access extra content. Thanks to these members for their continued support. Still in Brisbane, and local icon Stefan has become the 58th person to be presented with the keys to the city. Stefan Akari is a local businessman and philanthropist known for his contribution to Brisbane's business community and charitable sector. Longer-term Brisbane residents will probably have memories from when he was more in the public spotlight, so do share those with us shorter-term Brisbaneites in the comments. Apart from his chain of 37 hair salons, the longest-running hairdressing company in Australia, he is known for keeping the Sky Needle in Brisbane after Expo 88. You can still see it in South Brisbane. He also rescued a giant tennis racket, maybe something for another time, and established Stefan's Masks Foundation, which aimed to bring joy to children in hospital during Easter and Christmas. Let's now head up to Moreton Bay. You may remember from a past update on the Brisbane channel that plans to build a motorway through the town of Elimba were withdrawn after widespread community protests. Well, community consultation has opened for a set of reworked options for Stage 4 of the Bruce Highway Western Alternative, now dubbed the Moreton Motorway. The yellow line is the options originally proposed, and the blue lines represent the new options offered for community consultation, which will run until April 30. There's also 3 community consultation sessions planned for the next couple of weeks. You'll need to book if you want to attend, and I've put a link in the video description for that. People living in the Moreton Bay LGA are encouraged to share their views in the latest Moreton Says survey, which is now live until the 23rd of April, to help the City Council keep across what the community is thinking and feeling. This survey, they're focusing on active and public transport, as well as what makes Moreton Bay a good place to live, and people's experiences with council. You can complete the survey online or at a council library or customer service centre. Now down to Redland City, where local news outlet Redland Bayside News is running a poll to gauge the community's opinions about the idea of building a bridge to Russell Island, and possibly North Stradbroke Island. It's an idea that's been floating around for decades, but one that's become more topical as people located on the Bay Islands were isolated in the wake of ex-tropical cyclone Alfred. At the time of making this video, it was virtually 50-50 for and against. If you're from that part of the world, it'd be great to know your views on the topic. Ipswich has 2 updates, both of which are connected to the sporting world. Firstly, former women's world #1 tennis player and Ipswich local Ash Barty was consulted about having her achievements celebrated, and instead of a statue, proposed a playground which could be valued by children, families and the community instead. Well, the Ash Barty playground has now opened in Springfield. Barty co-designed the playground, which is tennis-themed, especially when viewed from above. It also features a rebound wall with a painted-on tennis net, so children can practice just as she did when she was growing up nearby. But Barty's not the only athletic superstar to come out of Ipswich, and this week, record-breaking sprinter Gout Gout, or Gwat Gwat, depending on which version of his name you want to run with, is continuing to astound. In the last week, he won the under-20 200-metre state title with a time of 19.98 seconds at Cusack. There must be something in the water in Ipswich. This next update is not LGA specific, but it's always nice to be able to include something about a new innovation that comes from Brisbane. Eagle-eyed Brisbane residents may have spotted some weird alien-like mystery yellow objects around the city around the time of ex-tropical cyclone Alfred. Well, it turns out that what people were observing was the first real-life trial of a new Brisbane innovation. They're called flood tuff units, and they are temporary protective barriers that can protect the intelligent transport systems that manage traffic flow, signals and road lighting. Developed by the University of Queensland's engineer Philip Bennett in collaboration with the Queensland Department of Transport and Main Roads and civil construction manufacturer Tri Underground, 24 flood tuff units were deployed in areas likely to experience flooding as Tropical Cyclone Alfred approached. In the 2022 floods, over 40 electrical traffic systems were lost. This time, of the 24 that had flood tuff units installed, 5 were partially submerged during flooding that followed the weather event. On inspection, all 5 appeared to work as planned, preventing water from damaging the internal components. I've got a bunch of exciting projects in the works for the Brisbane channel. Some I can tell you about, some I can't. But there'll be a video coming up, and I'll also keep you up to date in the posts tab on this channel, and also on the Brisbane channel's X, Blue Sky and Instagram. So be sure to follow on your platform of choice, and I'll see you in the next video.